that brings us to 29. And my buddy Chris Reynolds is not going to be happy. I didn't realize how bad this team is until you pointed out to me before we started here. The Saints. So we talked about the Panthers, and I thought the Saints, they were pretty competitive last year in some close games. I thought we'd be in for a similar story, but I look at this team and I think I agree with you. I think they're really bad. Talk about why you didn't like what you saw from New Orleans.
Well, so for New Orleans, I just don't like their weapons. I like Chris Olave. I like Alvin Kamara. I think they're great starters at, like the 1-and-1 for each position. But the problem is who's behind them. Jamal Williams was like really inefficient last year with the Saints, which is really odd because he was in a reduced role from when he played with the Lions the year prior, where he was really good as the main. So it's kind of odd that he was worse somehow, being the backup to Alvin Kamara. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, as much of a big Derek Carr fan I used to be, he unfortunately has completely fallen off. It's been really unfortunate to see because I used to really think that the Raiders had kind of given him the short end of the stick, and ultimately he hasn't really proven that they weren't wrong to get rid of him. And, I don't really like the weapons behind Olave. There's Rashid Shaheed, who's a good third receiver, but he's their second guy who they're hoping is going to take away attention from Olave, which probably isn't going to happen. Yeah, A.T. Perry and Jawan Johnson, who, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And, I don't know. The offensive line is okay. Penning's kind of whatever. McCoy and Ruiz are pretty good. And of course, Fuaga, they just drafted. So there's no. The offensive line's kind of in flux too. I'm
Don't
not
forget
loving
Packers legend Lucas Patrick is pretty
Lucas Patrick.
horrible. And my friend AJ, when I did, we were talking about like the Bears and the Packers and the Lions earlier. I did that like video with him. He like name dropped Lucas Patrick because that's how bad he thought he was on the Bears. He was like, I can't. I'm so excited we got rid of Lucas Patrick. He's on this team now. Penning hasn't done much for this team yet in the first 2 years of his career. So yeah, like Taysom Hill, he's fine as a gadget guy. He's like literally maybe one of their best red zone threats on this team. That's not good. That's not a you can't that's not a good idea. Like, and I don't think that's how they designed it. It's just how things played out for them. But even Kamara, who I know had a bounce back year last year, but a lot of it was just Derek Carr not being able to do anything with the football and getting it to Kamara on these checkdowns. Like Kamara was great in fantasy because he was getting 8 catches for 40 yards every game, but as a actual, number one running back, he was good, but he's not the Kamara of old. So he's not going to be able to carry this offense. And yeah, Derek Carr. Last year I picked this team to win the division. I thought bringing him in was a good fresh start for Derek Carr. And unfortunately I just think he's not the guy he once was. I think a lot of his critics that last year in Vegas were proven right. And pair him with Dennis Allen, a head coach that one is more of a defensive guy, but also kind of just, he was promoted when Sean Payton left. He was a defensive coordinator there for a long time. And he was really bad with the Raiders. He's just never proven to be able to elevate a team. I think the defense on this team did a lot to get them in the position to even be hovering around 500 last year. What do you think of the defense this year? Glancing at it, I think it's a smidge worse, but still pretty solid. That's what I would say.
Yeah, they've got some guys to like. You have the just solid veteran Cameron Jordan, who, continues to just evade father time. He's still
Yeah.
really good for his age. Obviously, I really like their linebacking core. I think their starters of Pete Warner, Demario Davis, and Willie Gay is really good. I think they got Willie Gay for really cheap. Like he was pretty decent for the Chiefs, so I think that's a great pickup for them. And I like some of their secondary players. Marshawn Lattimore is pretty underrated recently. It's kind of weird. No one really talks about him, but he's still really good. Tyrann Matthew's pretty decent still. Paulson Adebo is okay. Alontae Taylor is okay. I like what the defense is bringing better than the offense. And I'm just worried that the defense can't hold up forever because honestly, what is the offense going to give them any time to breathe? Because I'm just worried the
Exactly.
defense is going to be gassed for half the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that their corners are actually pretty good. Like Alontae Taylor's a really good slot guy. Maybe not an outside corner, but he's a really good slot guy. They also drafted Kool-Aid. I kind of forgot about that, but he's on this team as well. So
Yeah,
if he gives them anything, but yeah, I think the secondary is pretty good. Front seven's fine, but like you said, their time of possession is going to be really low on offense, and I think that's going to hurt the defense. That if they're playing Atlanta or Tampa, late in the season, and they're going to be tired, and these offenses are going to be able to exploit what should be a pretty, at least average, if not better, defense. And I think they'll wind up being in that 20-ish range just because they're not going to be able to get off the field. So, yeah, I think Dennis Allen is a really strong candidate. He's in that first coach fired, short list there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have much else to say about this team. I just think it's underwhelming, like we said.
I think the one benefit to this underwhelming team is that we most likely at some point this season will see either Jake Hayner or Spencer Rattler, who are both young quarterbacks.
Rattler in
And
the NFL, that would be something.
I think it's at least fun to see young quarterbacks and see what they can give you. Maybe they're not going to be good, but I'd rather see, if I was a Saints fan, friend Chris, I'd rather at least at some point see Hayner and Rattler play and see if they're worth anything for next year, because it's going to be a shit show on offense, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. So that brings us to number 28.